This is, I call this meeting to order, noticing a quorum present, the June 23rd meeting of the regular board meeting. Please rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Lynn, can you please take the roll?
Carl Schwarzy.
Is that the fiscal minutes? Oh. Here.
Dan Voltner.
Here.
Craig Wortman.
Here.
Charity Chandler. Here. Tammy Fournier. Here. Lori Hoffman.
Here.
Diana Johnson.
Here.
Sam Alumni.
Here. All right. Thank you for that. As we preview the agenda, is there any adjustments to the agenda that need to be made? No. All right. For the purpose of this particular meeting, I will be trying to rigidly adhere to the time boxing that we have laid out. I'm asking for the board to help me in that process. So we can try to keep our comments brief and concise. That would be great, as well as respect the time boxing that we have in the agenda tonight, because we have a pretty packed agenda. All right, that brings us to our first opportunity for public input. I would remind anybody that wants to participate in public comment to fill out the card that's in front of us as well. Also, please state your name and address for the record. Please also remember that we're going to try to keep our comments to a civil matter, civil and decorum. And please direct your comments only to the board as a whole, not to any individual staff member, not to any individual board member as well. So is there anybody that's interested in public input? Please.
My name is Camille Stevens, and I live on North Water Street. I'm going into 7th grade at Riverside Middle School, and I have a list of things I'd like to bring up regarding like the flags. I don't understand what the problem with flags would be, other than the U.S. flag, the Wisconsin flag, and the Watertown flag, because there's world history class, which obviously they need the flags from all around the world, and flags aren't really doing anything to anybody. If people are from different like cultures, does that mean they can't wear things that have their flag on it? Like Mexican flags or flags from Spain. And then on the anti-bullying part, I have had bullying in the past, and there were reports that weren't followed up consistently. And I read like the original thing, and it said that they're supposed to be followed up. So I just don't really understand that part. And then when it was like physical bullying, it was really taken into account and dealt with like immediately. But when it was verbal, it was never really dealt with. Bullying can include ignoring a person's pronouns, which draft C allows. And then with the controversial issues, who decides on what is or isn't controversial? And shouldn't it be a goal for you guys to get kids to attend school and make them feel safe at school? In other districts, there's people when they struggle to get students to come to school. So sometimes it kind of seems like that's our goal, to push students like away from us. And are the dress codes and the pride flags really our biggest issue? Especially with the failed referendum and staff being leaving or being pushed away.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Katie Vanderlinden, N8071 High Road, Watertown, Wisconsin. I attended the most recent policy meeting in which Sam praised the committee for only taking 3.5 hours to get through a dress code policy. That's not praise, that's a waste of time. I remind you that not even 50 kids have broken the dress code in 5 years, 50 total, and 0 faculty, teachers, and staff. So what is it? You have to spend hours discussing something that isn't broken, that doesn't need fixing, and is a huge waste of time and money. Well, let's address some of the problems you say. Craig said that schools should be professional dress. Could you please enlighten me on what a 3rd grader's professional dress is? According to this code, I am not professionally dressed, yet I wear this to work, the church, the YMCA, and track. Nothing is wrong with my attire, but you would find fault with it. It might be controversial because I only have strings, not full sleeves. But clearly, you don't exactly explain what controversial is. Is it what my kid wears to skills or what my daughter wears to GSA? Dr. Burke was very clear. Enforcing this code will be a nightmare, but you decide to keep going. I say there is an alternative. No dress code changes. Let's teach kids how to associate and respect those who are different from them. Kids go to jobs and see people wearing things that they don't agree with. You think their boss cares? You think their boss is going to cater to them? But actually, no. They're going to encourage them to get to know each other and to actually connect with one another. The job of the school board, according to both the state and to Watertown, is to listen to students, parents, and teachers. So listen to us. Raise your hand if you want a new dress code. Exactly. I have a teenager who is very proud of her body. I have a teenager who wears crop tops and tank tops because she's confident and because it's hot. Do you know what Charity said at the last meeting? She said if I had more confidence or felt better, I would show off my arms.
Please direct your comments to the board.
These are quotes on the board from the board
Direct
minutes.
To the board, please.
I'm
not
just commenting on what you all said.
Numbers.
I'm saying what you said in a meeting. I'm allowed to quote from minutes. I don't want my kid to grow up thinking that she needs to be ashamed of her body because her shoulders stick out. And furthermore, I have a son, and you know what? He doesn't care whose shoulders show. He's going to concentrate on his work and his schoolwork and his studies. And you better start focusing on what matters as well. It doesn't matter what kids are wearing because nobody's having a problem with it. It doesn't matter what faculty and staff is wearing because nobody's having a problem with it. The only people having a problem are you, the ones who fought against a mask, but now want to
Join the meeting.
what kids can wear. Hypocrisy at its finest.
Anybody else for a public comment?
I'm Barb Weiss. I live at 1118 Riverview Lane in Watertown. I'm going to discuss the Joint Finance Committee because it affects this board, and I'm hoping the board is actually taking time to advocate for their district. This is, I'm going to read what I wrote to a staff member of Senator John Jagler. On June 12th, the Joint Finance Committee voted on funding for special education services in public schools. This vote does harm to every district in this state, to every public school student in this state, and the future harm to every employer in this state. I personally participated in a legislative action day that was organized by Wisdom, a faith-based organization. I, along with another person, directly spoke to the need to increase the reimbursement for special education services to 60%, some sufficient. I'm aware that other organizations also lobbied the legislatures for this increase. It seems that Senator Jagler and his fellow Republican legislators have chosen to completely ignore the wishes of their constituents. Remember that the vast majority of students attend public schools in this state. Our state legislatures should be advocating for and supporting the majority of students in their districts. Yet last year, Senator Jagler proposed and passed legislation that reimburses voucher schools 90% for special education services. Then this year, he refuses to support even an increase to 60% for public schools who educate the majority of Wisconsin students. How is this representing the needs of the majority of students? The Republicans are trying to frame this as an historic investment in education. This is more sleight of hand manipulation. They are basing it on the fact that they are proposing to increase the high needs reimbursement rate. The catch on this is that only applies to 0.05% of students. It will only help approximately 62% of schools. Only 3 out of 100 special education students will be better funded, while 97 out of 100 will still be grossly underfunded. School districts will have a very slight, but will still have a very significant shortfall in funds for special education services. This is not an historic investment when you look at the complete history of special education reimbursement in this state. In the 1980s, under Republican Governor Tommy Thompson, special education reimbursement was over 60%. The request to increase current funding is actually less than the historic high. Claiming the proposal by the Joint Finance Committee is an historic investment is false advertising and unethical. The senator also should be reminded that failing to adequately fund special education services hurts every single student in public schools. Whenever a district has a shortfall in funds needed to pay for special education services, they are forced to take money from funds that are intended to pay for such things as technical education classes, art and music classes, AP classes, etc. This shortchanges the education of every student in this district. These students are the employees of tomorrow. Shortchanging their education now shortchanges the businesses that will employ them in the future. How is this good for the state of Wisconsin?
Your comments, please.
Okay, I'm hoping that every single board member has been talking to Senator John Jago. If you are not, you are not doing your job as advocating for the students in this district.
Anybody else for public input? All right.
Good evening. My name is the Reverend Dr. Christopher Ross. I live in Cottage Grove, but I work and serve here in Watertown as the pastor of First Congregational United Church.
What's your address, please, for the record?
432 West Clover Lane.
Thank you.
My pronouns are he, him, his. This year's Watertown Pride event has been scheduled for Saturday, July 19th from 10 to 6 at First Congregational UCC. I invite you to come and see a wonderful and joy-filled day for families of all kinds. But know it is a safe place that honors the Christian values of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So please leave any bigotry and false narratives at home. But do know that you also are welcome to come check it out and even to join us in supporting your community's youth and their families. Youth and families you all have pledged to serve. Thank you.
We have time for one more comment, if somebody cares to. Make sure you're filling out the cards too, please.
It's already filled out.
Okay, great.
My name is Shelby Keller. I live at 109 North Carroll in Johnson Creek. I'm going to come right out and say it. I am here with an agenda. Because you see, I may be an atheist, but even I know a deal with the devil when I see one. And when this board aligned themselves with Moms for Liberty, they bought themselves a ticket straight to hell. People like to paint me as a political activist who turned her targets on Moms for Liberty, but in reality, I was just a concerned parent. Members of Moms for Liberty made me a target, and that is what turned me into an activist. In some ways, I owe the moms a thank you for making me pay attention. One of their missions is to get parents involved, and boy, did they inspire me to do so. I started asking questions that no one around me was asking and quickly learned the moms don't like it when you do that. They say they want truth and transparency, but they run campaigns based on lies and deception. They pretend to care about kids' education, but in reality, their goal is to keep kids from learning. They don't want children to learn how to be critical thinkers because that means the next generation is going to be critical of their actions. They create false narratives to instill fear in their communities because people are easier to manipulate if they are scared. But as Reagan said, evil is powerless if the good are unafraid. I cannot sit quietly and allow my community to continue living in fear. Some in this room would argue that this is what the people voted for. But let's not forget that the people also voted for Tina Johnson and Fred Yant and Mike Higgins. And even though she may not have won, almost 4,000 people in this district also voted for Charity Chandler. It's remarkable that Charity hasn't added herself to the list of people who can no longer serve with this board. She has been attacked viciously and relentlessly since her appointment, called names I wouldn't repeat if you paid me, and still she shows up and participates proactively in conversation with an aim of neutrality for the sake of our children's education, regardless of who their parents voted for. That is what the job of a school board member is supposed to be, serving the students and staff and making sure their needs are met in order to cultivate the next generation of leaders. Charity has gone above and beyond the responsibilities of her role. 16 seniors received diplomas this year because the fundraising efforts of her small business covered the financial obligations for students who needed help. Despite her unwavering dedication, this board has essentially stayed silent in regards to things that are said about Charity because it doesn't serve their interest to put those rumors to rest.
We're not going to be commenting about other board members. Please direct your comments to the board.
I said this
As
board. I said this board.
No, you're making comments about a particular board member.
Okay. When letters began circulating calling out board missteps, the board was quick to release a statement condemning the author for pointing out difficulties that some board members have to getting to meetings on time. Astounding that that's where they decide to expel their efforts, defending people who need to be reminded when it's their turn to speak during meetings. Aren't you guys embarrassed? Because I'm embarrassed for you. Watertown is used as the example of how badly schools crash out when their boards are infiltrated by extremist groups. Is that really what you want your legacy to be? The elected officials who ruined education in Watertown for years to
Time's
come?
up.
My goal is to prevent what's happening from happening anywhere else. 2 more sentences. My agenda is to make sure that people are aware of who is in charge of their children's education. And my hope is that you remember that you are here to serve all of your constituents, not just the ones who voted for you. Thank you. I would have made it in time.
All right. We are moving on to number 3, the announcements and recognition communications in our agenda. First up is our student art purchase presentation.
I get the wonderful distinction to talk about our senior art projects. And I will tell you, nothing makes me happier right now than to do that. Isabella Costa, come on up here. And Danielle Cron. Daniela. Or Danielle. These wonderful pieces of art were purchased by various entities in the school district, the high school, as well as the ESC. And they'll be displayed to honor these students and their work. Isabella and Hunger of Technique, as well as Danielle and Watertown Bloomer. And I'd like you guys to each say just a few words about your piece of art, and then I've got a wonderful check.
I made my piece when I was in my 8th art portfolio. It was like kind of in the earlier stages, but I felt like I was kind of lacking technique and like I needed inspiration. And so with these 2 pause books, actually the model is Danny right here and 2 pause books. And yeah, I just felt like it expressed where my mind was at the time. And yeah.
Congratulations.
I made mine in my drawing class with Mrs. Strobel. The prompt was just give me something colorful, and my favorite thing to do with color is to use complementary colors. And my favorite use of complementary colors is orange and blue, so I thought of a bluebird, which is my favorite bird, and then just an array of different shades of oranges and yellows in the background to complement that. Awesome.
Lastly, I'd like to thank Dave Paul and the art staff at high school, as well as all the other teachers. I do have to say that Isabella as well. Your art will be hanging at the Watertown High School office. And Danielle, yours will be here at the ESC, just like these are here.
I'm going to take the artwork outside for a picture.
Now that it's not raining, is it done raining?
Yes.
Goodness. Great. Thank you for that. That brings us to the Distinguished Alumni Award recipient, 2025.
Give it just a minute to call up our presentation on the Up next, I get to do another fabulous thing where we get to name for the public our distinguished alumni for the 25-26 school year. You may or may not know this person by their picture, but tell me when you're ready. Give me a second. And you're gonna have to excuse me because this is always one that I read because it's going to be a lot of biographical information and I want to get it right for all the public out there who maybe haven't seen the presentation. Should we go? Okay, yes, this is David Neil McMurray. David is a graduate of 1960s class at Watertown High School. He attended the University of Madison, Wisconsin, where he earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Chemical Engineering in 1965. David then served as a Peace Corps volunteer for 2 years in rural Kenya. Upon returning to the Peace Corps, he went back to Madison for his Master's of Science and PhD degrees in medical microbiology. He then spent 4 years as a postdoctorate fellow at Tulane University International Center for Medical Research in Cali, Colombia. In 1976, he was recruited to the new Texas A&M University College of Medicine as an assistant professor and rose through the ranks to professor in 1991. David was named as the Regents Professor in 2000 and a Professor Emeritus in 2017. McMurray was a founding member of the Intercollegiate Faculty of Nutrition and served as a chair of faculty from 1993 to 96. During his 41 years on the faculty, he taught immunology, microbiology to every medical student who graduated from the College of Medicine. David received several teaching awards and was inducted into the Academy of Distinguished Medical Educators in 2012. His research focused on the mechanisms of vaccine-induced resistance to tuberculosis using a high relevant guinea pig model for low-dose pulmonary exposure. McMurray extramurals grants and contracts principally from the National Institute of Health brought in more than $15 million. One of his grants was funded continually for 24 years. David's many other accomplishments include collaborating for 25 years on the National Institute of Health funded investigation to elucidate mechanisms by which long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids suppress immune and inflammatory responses, published more than 220 papers in peer-reviewed journals, trained nearly 50 graduate students and postdoctoral fellows, served on editorial boards of several scientific journals in his areas of expertise, member of the National Institute of Health study sections and ad hoc review groups, served 3 years as a member of the VA Merit Review Subcommittee on Infectious Diseases, reviewed 40 manuscripts per year for several scientific journals, a consultant for 10 years to the World Health Organization, and served as chair of the Immunology of Microbacteria Steering Committee and the Animal Models Task Force, traveled to Russia several times as a technical advisor to the U.S. government to review U.S.-funded tuberculosis research programs, frequently traveled to other TB high-burden countries such as India, China, Ethiopia, Vietnam, Russia, South Africa to consult with TB research groups, was a member of an expert panel convened by the Academy of Sciences of South Africa to develop a consensus study of nutritional influences on human immunology, human immunity in tuberculosis and HIV infection. He was a member of the tuberculosis and leprosy panel of the U.S. Japan Cooperative Medical Sciences Program for 20 years and served as chair of the U.S. panel from 2005 to 2010. Served for 10 years as a member of the board of directors of the Arias Global TB Vaccine Foundation that received more than $500 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to take a portfolio of promising TB vaccines through preclinical development and into human trials. Oh, okay. David and his wife, Landley, reside in College Station, Texas. David is the father of 4. Rusty just graduated high school and will attend University of Texas in Austin next fall. Christopher owns a lodge and outfitters up in Manitowish Waters, Wisconsin. Mark works in retail sales in San Antonio, Texas. And Michael is a professor at the University of Colorado Medical School in Denver. There are 6 grandchildren. David retired in 2017 and enjoys fishing, reading, traveling, and solving several number of word puzzles each day. He also continues to participate on a couple of committees and give a lecture or 2 each year at the medical school, as well as interview 30 to 40 medical school applicants per year. I want to say congratulations again to David. He was so excited on the phone when I talked to him, and we're excited for him because you saw that resume. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor for me to receive this. Yeah.
We have him here. Go ahead and speak to us, sir.
Okay. Thank you. In the interest of time, I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to thank you for this honor. It's a great honor for me. I think of Watertown often, return not as often as I would like to, but I sure would like to be there next fall at a football game. My memories of football games in Watertown are keeping my mouthpiece in my pocket so it didn't freeze to my lips as I played trombone in the marching band. Thank you.
Congratulations. We can't wait to see you this fall.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Thank you. This brings us to the point of our agenda where we have a discussion, a strategic discussion, and the first item up is SURE's AGR EOY report rather. Take it away, Sarah, or
No.
Casey?
Hi there, my name is Casey Roche. I am the principal at Shares Elementary School. If you are unaware of who I am, I just wrapped up my first year as principal at Shares. I know I'm biased, but I think we had an amazing year together, and I'm really excited for the work that we'll continue to do. We are going to walk through the Achievement Gap Reduction Program end of year board update. The state of Wisconsin requires us to report out twice a year on our participation in the AGR program. The AGR program is a program established for the state to address disparities in student achievement, but providing funding for schools who have a high percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged. You can see on the graph there, SURE's in blue is the number of students who are considered economically disadvantaged, and that has remained fairly steady over the course of the past 4 years and beyond. We're right around that 70% mark. As part of participating in that AGR program, every 5 years, we have to create a set of performance objectives, including how we're going to work to reduce that achievement gap for our students who are economically disadvantaged compared to their peers who are not. And just how are we going to work to improve that overall academic performance and long-term outcomes for our students. I think on a more personal level, talking about SURE's, the participation in the AGR program really helps us focus on early intervention and those early grades. We know that our students need to master those foundational skills in literacy and math by grade 3. And this really gives us some additional support and resources to focus our energies on early intervention. It aligns with our mission to serve all learners.
We are really focused on promoting academic excellence in our district, and this is just another tool, another avenue for us to do so and to develop lifelong level learning for our students and our staff. It really helps us remain rooted in making data-informed decisions. We are, as part of the AGR program, having to continuously review our data and report out to both you guys, the board, and the state. So it's really kind of pushing us to be more intentional with our data and consistent in how we use it across the board at Charters. It also just holds us accountable to high standards. Again, we're continually evaluating our strategies, our work within the AGR program, and how we use our instructional coach, which I'll talk about in a minute. But again, it's just is a valuable asset to us in the work that we do each and every single day to close gaps for our students and to raise achievement for all. So I'm going to move on to page 2. For the state, there are 3 ways that you can use the AGR funds as a district and as a school. We have utilized an instructional coach in grades K through 3. This is a repeat of information earlier this school year, so it might look familiar to you. But these are all the ways that we use our instructional coach. And this position wears a wide variety of hats. They're heavily involved in our curriculum and instructional support, working with staff in our PLC meetings, helping grade level teams analyze data, make instructional choices, and just improve our overall practices school-wide. This person works a lot with our data, making sure that we're bringing data to our school-based teams to, again, inform our instructional choices, and then working within our response to intervention RTI system by, again, helping collect and analyze that data. This person also works one-on-one with students from delivering assessments via the requirements of Act 20, but also delivering tier 3 interventions in math and reading. This person also does that. And then is a great asset in our overall professional development as a school and the overall growth of our teachers in the building. So that is the what we do with those additional funds. So how did we do this school year? Moving down to page 3, starting with our youngest learners, our kindergartners. Our goal was that by the end of the school year, that kindergarten students would show proficiency in their letter recognition and matching sounds. So we did use our district-wide letters and sounds assessment. This asked our kindergartners to identify all 26 letters of the alphabet, both uppercase and lowercase, and then their matching sounds. You can see in the yellow there that our goal was to hit 75%. By the end of the year, it's not really a spring color, but it is that ugly gray there. Indicates that we did meet that goal. We hit 78% with our youngest learners. Moving then to the next page. We have a peek at our STAR data over the course of the past school year. Excuse me, sorry. Our goal was that by the end of the school year, the percent of students scoring at or above proficiency on STAR math and reading would increase by 20 percentage points per grade level. And I think it is very clear that we did not meet that goal in any grade. We had really great growth in winter and then kind of circled around here in spring and did not see the results that we were hoping for. It quite honestly was a gut punch, right? To see that data and to see it not reflect the hard work that I know our teachers and our students are doing every single day. And I just kind of had to sit with it for a little bit and think about, you know, why. I think the important piece that Mr. Bull reminded me of is that we cannot just take one data point that doesn't accurately explain any picture. So I did include in the below graph there, although it's not a part of our AGR plan, it was some important data to help paint a picture of what's happening with our students. It's our latest Act 20 reading plan data. So according to the data, in winter, in blue there, you'll see the percent of students who qualified for a reading plan this winter in grades K1, 2, and 3. And then you will see in spring, the same number of students who qualified for a reading plan. In 3 of those 4 grades, we saw a reduction in need of reading plans for our students. So we know that we're making growth We know that we're making great gains. It did not show up in our star reading and math results in our spring assessment this year. I think there's a couple other things to consider when looking at the data as well. It was our first year of our Bridges math implementation, and we talked about that previously. But an implementation gap is a real thing. It's very common and anticipated to take a dip the first year of any implementation of a new curriculum. Our teachers are learning the curriculum, our students are learning the curriculum, and it takes time to increase their capacity in that. The introduction of the Act 20 requirements this school year, it is an important piece of legislation, but it took a lot of heavy lifting to ensure that Act 20 was implemented to the requirements of the state this school year. It was a lot of time creating diagnostics and conducting those assessments and then analyzing the data and creating their reading plans and then providing those interventions. And ultimately what I'm saying is that took a lot of time away from our students. Our adults were busy working through the process of Act 20, but as a result, our instructional coach, her time spent this winter was less time with students, more time trying to support us through Act 20. So just food for thought. We won't have to do that foundational work moving forward, but it did play a role in the success of our year. I think assessment fatigue as well. Our students experienced a high level of assessments this springtime. I think about our third graders specifically. They took the Wisconsin Forward Assessment in April, and then May they also took the STAR Reading and Math Assessment, and then they also took the Ames Web Screener Assessment. That was exhausting for me to say that, so I think about those little third graders taking all those assessments. I think they were pretty tired by the end of that, and I don't know if it was an accurate reflection of their growth. Also just acknowledging the fact that our current curriculum is not rooted in the science of reading. We have done a ton of training this year, both as administrators and staff, educating ourselves on the science of reading. And we know that our current curriculum, although fills many needs of our students, it isn't based in best practice. And so we did the best that we could this school year with the knowledge that we have, but it really lends us to our next steps for the next school year. We're really excited about, the adoption and the full implementation of our new HMH curriculum.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie.
AGR gets me really excited, guys. Sorry.
I thought we were going down the beach.
All right. So, moving into our next steps before the lights go out again. Just that adoption and full implementation, we've already started the process. Our teachers have already engaged in a 2-hour training. Administrators at the elementary level, last week we participated, or was it last week? Yes, I think so. That we participated in the training, so we're getting the ball rolling with that. We are moving to an implementation of co-serve, co-plan. That is something that is already occurring at the middle and I believe at the high school level. But really it is changing how we plan for instruction. Instead of teachers planning for instruction in isolation, kind of alone, it's kind of forcing their hands with collaboration and bringing other players with different specialties and knowledge to the table. So it's making sure that our special education teachers are part of the planning process, our EL teachers, our interventionists, our instructional coaches, so that we are really making sure that our instruction is meeting the needs of all of our learners. And we're really, again, excited for that new implementation next year. We're also going to continue to develop ourselves as leaders. Both myself and my instructional coach, Carrie Dean, will be participating in the Impactful Coaching Academy next year through the Association of Wisconsin School Administrators. The hope is that we will build our own capacity as instructional leaders and work to continue to build a culture of continuous learning and improvement within SHRS. We're working on developing instructional pacing guides. Jenny Boris has already had the ball running in the area of math and putting a team together. And then our instructional coaches in the district are really working on digging through that HMH curriculum and making sure that we have pacing guides for our teachers. This really works to ensure that we are aligned vertically up and down across our grades, but also that we're consistent among our grades as well. We are going to be dedicating one staff meeting a month to just focus on curriculum and instructional work. Thinking about the idea that we have had 2 brand new curriculums in 2 years, our teachers need time to become masters of the curriculum. And so just being very intentional with our staff meeting time to make sure teachers are getting the support that they need so that when they walk into their classrooms, they're ready to go and have a good understanding of what they're teaching. The last 2, just continued implementation of Act 20, refining that process, really building our systems to ensure that we have a really good high quality level of interventions in place, that we're progress monitoring our data, and then making changes as we go to meet the needs of our students. And lastly, really looking to refine our student intervention team process, just focusing on strengthening our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions to ensure that our students are getting what they need in a timely manner. I know that I talked fast and that was a lot of information. So I guess now it's open up to you guys for questions that you might have on our participation in the AGR program.
Any questions for Roush? None? Thank you for your thoroughness. We realize that, despite our best efforts, when you get into a situation where you got a number of different, variables at play, including, exploring new curriculum and getting, acclimated to the role in the district, that, it's understandable that, the data might not reflect what we always anticipate. So
Thanks.
keep up the good work. I
Thanks.
know that you're doing a good job. So thank you. All right. Moving on. That brings us to the part of our discussion about the adoption of the Neola policy book.
So for just about 2 years now, we've been working to transition our current policies into a new format, using Neola policies to help drive that discussion and format. And we are all but 60 some policies away from getting that done, which means hundreds and hundreds of policies have been reviewed over the last 2 years. A job well done and well lifted. I'd like to take the bulk of that work and approve that tonight to take place starting July 1, so that way we know what next year entails. The 60 policies, that's any year's given work of renewing, relooking at, and moving forward. We can easily finish those policies into the first couple of months into the next school year. If there's any discussion, I'd be happy to open that up, but I'd really like to start off July 1 with our new book of policy work that we've done. Any discussion?
This has been a long time in the process. I would also remind board members that as we have been going through that process, we've been approving those policies. July 1st is when those policies will
Take effect.
as we had already approved. Charity.
So is anything that goes through second reading tonight slated for inclusion in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I believe they're all in there. If you were to click on that link, that's in the public content area, you'll be able to see the policies as they will look.
Scrolling through, but rather than scrolling through hundreds, I thought.
Exactly. But no, the ones that are approved for second read tonight would be in there. And the resolution itself tonight, later on in the meeting, is to just adopt all of the work that has been completed past second read through the board level, right? And again, there's 60 some left that are in various stages of first read, draft, or second read. That would be after tonight's meeting and for future second read. It's like all those first reads, they won't be in, they'll be in once they get passed through.
Excellent. And it's not an inclusive list where there's definitely more work to be done. We're going to try to, as my understanding, we're going to go ahead and work through the remainder of the policies that we have left. and then begin the review process of the book. It's just an ongoing cycle. We have other updates that come down from Neola for discussion.
Yep, so moving forward, after we approve the book, we will have 2 biannual updates that Neola will give us. And that will be anything from new state law, new federal law, requested changes from the DPI and other things that will come in those updates. And then also every year, we may have our own updates that we want to do based on how we want to govern the school district. So that will also be continued work each year. So it's not like the policy committee gets to dissolve now. We just get to go back to the regular work of policy instead of this large lift that we've done over the last 2 years. And I appreciate all of the past and president board members for all the contributions they've made. It's a big lift to do that. So thank you.
Excellent. Yes. Thank you for your patience and the long meetings at policy. You know, it was necessary. Unfortunately, it looks kind of clunky, but it was clearly, it's still a process and we still may have some longer meetings, but it's just the way of the work that we have in front of us. All right, that brings us to, unless there were any other questions, no? All right. Letter C, the eCampus contract discussion. This discussion was had at the Ed Services Committee, and I asked Dan to see if it would be appropriate to bring it forward as a strategic discussion because of the nature of you know, the contract language and the extent of the contract. It's important for us to get this right because I personally feel that we can't not afford to move forward with having eCampus as part of what we offer at the school district, but also understanding that that it is also necessary for a 5 vote to move forward with eCampus, the contract. So that may also include a little bit of discussion and potentially compromise moving forward with that particular contract. I don't have did anybody have any questions or concerns about the contract?
Yeah, what was the problem with the 5 years again?
Okay, before I get into that, I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. Our action items actually, for this particular contract also indicated that, that Sam would work with administration to put together a, like some of the contract language moving forward, as far as like the goals, the measurable goals and things of that nature. Sam, did you have anything to share in that respect or?
No, I'd be happy to work with them to create some measurable goals. I think that sounds like a great idea.
Okay,
So that means we have to pass it, if we're gonna pass it as is, because this has to be done by the 30th.
the 30th would be the deadline, so, perhaps Jason, I understand that
So-
you played a,
I can go over the drafts that are
Okay.
offered in the document today
Yes.
for you that Jason did work on. So he worked on attendance. The committee asked to see something on attendance, and so there was an increased daily average attendance. This is on page 4, end of the boxes right there where it talks about that. Added an increased daily average attendance percentage by 3% each year, 2025 through 2030. Chronic absenteeism decreased the total chronic absenteeism percentage by 3% each year, 2025 to 2030. Then there was an overall discussion that says during the course of the 25-26 school year, members of the eCampus staff will collaborate with the eCampus Academy Governance Board and the WUSD Education Liaison
to develop a comprehensive student achievement dashboard as a step towards the identification of long-term comprehensive student outcome goals that are aligned to the mission, vision of eCampus and the WUSD strategic plan. And that was another discussion point that we asked, because we realized that trying to put together a goal without asking what data are we going to be looking through, what are our constraints, just noting in the contract that we're going to hold our group responsible together by saying we're going to have WUSD board liaison as well as their governance board work through our continued goals to try to have more data and more goals aligned to the strategic plan of the district. Next, and Jason, jump in if I miss anything. On page 5, halfway through where it talks about equal opportunity procedures, we changed the following to this language. It says the equal opportunity procedures WUSD and eCampus Academy will assure access for all students through multiple means, including the following. And there was 2 outlines there that were there. All district non-discrimination policies that WUSD will be adhered to. The charter contract specifically stipulates that eCampus Academy will not discriminate. Number 2, enrollment is voluntary and will be open to all students from WUSD as well as through the state's open enrollment process. And then also a change to the vocabulary there that says eCampus Academy Charter School will utilize a variety of strategies to achieve and maintain equal access to eCampus programming in a manner that is reflective to WUSD's procedures, including but not limited to. And then it goes into the main 3, which are education of eCampus programming through WUSD website and all social media platforms. 2, regular collaboration with all building leaders throughout WUSD. And 3, education of eCampus programming options through regular presence of WUSD events. Next, down the page to page 9, about halfway down, there is a guarantee of non-discrimination. And it should read as this now. The eCampus Academy will not deny admission or participation in any program or activity on the basis of a person's sex, race, religion, national origin, ancestry, pregnancy, material or parental status, sexual orientation, or physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability. eCampus Academy will evaluate all programs annually to ensure alignment to district non-discrimination policies. Targeted outreach will be undertaken by eCampus leadership and eCampus governance board members to ensure equal access as needed. And I believe that was it.
Thank you.
And those suggested changes were from the education subcommittee. If there's anybody on that committee that, if there's anything we missed, that's what we put together.
Any thoughts or discussions on the contract so far? I do have some reservations about the measurable achievement goals, a specific around attendance and chronic absenteeism. The chronic absenteeism of eCampus is at around 35%. And 3%, I feel that 3% of a percentage each year is not a strong enough benchmark to try to affect some change in that particular area. I'm impartial to daily attendance. I think that probably should be a little bit more aggressive as well. That my suggestion would be 5% each year on attendance and 10% each year on chronic absenteeism until we get that closer to a manageable level. Go ahead, Sam.
Just a clarifying question, and Jared or Jason, maybe you can answer it for me, because you're hitting on something that's kind of interesting there, to me at least. The 3%, is that 3% of the percentage? Or is it a flat 3% decrease? So if it's at 30, does that mean that the first year it goes down to 27, then it goes down to 24, and so on and so on?
Yeah.
Okay. That is.
explain the rationale for the house.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
But, brick and mortar high school, chronic absenteeism is around 15%. There was, I would say, a full court press on decreasing that this year. And it went down about 1.5% with that, with extensive efforts. And so the thought was, if we decrease it 3% over 5 years, we've got a spot that would be similar to the brick and mortar.
As a follow-up question, do you find that it is more difficult to ensure attendance in the e-campus versus the brick and mortar schools?
I don't think it's more challenging. I think it's different.
Oh.
I don't know if there's any support for a more aggressive metric in that respect. Still think that I realize that, you know, things are challenging to turn around chronic absenteeism, but that's pretty essential to what we do when it comes to education. When you have 35%, that's over a third of our students that are not attending class. And I don't know. I don't even know how we can be effective at learning at that point.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Jason, I have a question. You said at that meeting that this was often the second chance for these kids because they didn't do well in brick and mortar. Would one of the problems they have had be absenteeism or?
Yes.
Yeah. So they already came in with that problem and this was their second chance.
Dana.
I stated this at the committee level. I know that not all the board members were there, but I'll state it again. I worked at an online school for a year. We talked and we got data that how many of them are high risk, how many of them have issues, you know, in attendance, in some of those other things that they may be running away from. Not all, but we talked about the higher number, and that was referenced, you know, with this. I could talk about many students of the 200 that I had in my class. I'll talk about one student. I worked from day one until right after Christmas break. That student never attended class. I called home weekly. We had multi-levels of support. This is the largest online school in the nation, and they couldn't get this kid to school. And finally, it took that long to get through the process and the programming with it. That's one kid. So as much as I tried to wrap around, as much as others tried to wrap around, there's only so much that you can do. I appreciate the efforts here. 3% for the chronics to me is large. And you use the data. Thank you for bringing that. 1.5% in our brick and mortar where we have people physically wrapping around those kids that are there present. These are kids that you're trying to connect with by a computer that may or may not be attending, that you try to call home. They may not answer. And so I would like to see, yeah, let's go with that 3%. We had talked about having some benchmarks throughout. Look to see measurable. Just because it's 3% now doesn't mean that we might achieve it, we might not, and we reflect on those goals and we might need to adjust those goals. It's not a one and done, let's check in 5 years. But with this, we have some concrete measures here. I agreed with your statement at the committee level, and I'll agree with it here, that I think we do need to do some additional things to kind of put a thumb on some of the things that are happening with eCampus. But I don't think we need to stop the show to do that. And so I do strongly recommend that we move forward with this, that we connect back in, whether it be a year, 2 year, whatever, to do some revisiting, some refining. This is by no means perfect. It's improving. It has been, I hate to use the word neglected, but it hasn't gotten the attention that it probably should have gotten over the years. But you're going to hear me say this a lot of times. When Dr. Burke came on, we had a lot of things in front of us. And we still do. We had nothing really for a strategic plan. And that first year, the focus was math and reading, math and literacy. You know, although we have many other things that needed to be our focus. And then it became the referendum and working through that. And we still have those in our forefront. How many more things are we going to continue to put on the plate and not set, you know, without sacrificing those key elements that need work? I call them the big rocks. We've got some big rocks. this is a rock, but it's not our biggest rock, so can we please move it forward? Take some looks into it down the road in a year, in 2 years, do some checkpoints. That's where I stand in it, and I don't think we cannot move it forward, because what are we going to do for those students? They need a place, they need a way of learning.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate your comments, Diana. I feel the same. I think that eCampus is a really valuable resource for students who want to try a different method of, attending school. And I've known many students in my time who have benefited greatly from eCampus. So I do agree with you fundamentally. I hear what Craig is saying, the importance of maintaining something good there. I think 3% is a good shot, but that kind of transitions to Jason. One more question for you. If we're in the brick and mortar schools, if we're sitting at 15%, do you think that aiming for a 4% decrease each year would break the system, or do you think that that would be doable even though it's a little bit higher than what you have set currently?
I think it's always good to set goals that are realistic, but also stretch. And 4 would definitely be a stretch, right? 3 is realistic and probably a stretch, but 4 is something that we could certainly work towards. Knowing that I think the most important sentence in this revised version is the collaboration, right? And understanding that as we collaborate throughout the year, conversations will be had around the progress being made, the action steps to get there, and realistically where we are.
Because my proposal would be, one more thing. My proposal would be that if we were going to alter it, we would bring it up to 4%, because over 5 years, that would bring the absentee and attendance issues down to be comparable with brick and mortar schools. So,
yeah, I understand. My question would be, how much of that 35% is attainable to knock down to a better level right off the bat? Like for instance, and I hate to use this example, let's say you have a 300-pound person and you tell them to lose 5 pounds, that's going to look a lot different from a 150-pound person trying to lose 5 pounds. It's all in how you look at that particular level of metric that you're trying to attain. So if we're trying to get down to, let's say, 10 as an acceptable level of chronic absenteeism, well, 3% a year until we get to, almost perfect. Yeah, I can empathize with the argument that, yeah, this is a challenge to try to obtain, but 35% seems to be quite extreme for a program that we're trying to verify is doing the best that we possibly can for these students. And I'm not sure, we've had that discussion at services. I have my reservations on the data suggesting differently, but I feel like there needs to be definitely more of an aggressive approach there. The other thing too is I am not comfortable with a 5-year outlook on this at this point. I feel that because it hasn't been, and I agree with a lot of everything, almost everything with what Diana says on this particular topic. But I think we disagree slightly on the time frame. I do agree that yes, we need to have eCampus. I do agree that we need to have benchmarks in place, and that we should revisit this on a regular basis for review. But I also want to make it, my suggestion would be a two-year contract, so that it still gives the runway for eCampus to get some of these things moving in the right direction, but then it also compels the board to revisit this and make it a priority 2 years down the road. So that would be my suggestion. Go ahead, Lauren.
I have a question, Mr. Bull. What happens if you set your goal at 4% and you only hit 3?
Well, that's what in my opinion, what would happen is that we have that collaboration between the governance board of eCampus Endeavor and the school board liaison and the larger school board about, again, the efforts that were undertaken to achieve the marker. What is next, similar to our AGR report. Here's where we're at, here's what happened, and here's the steps that we're taking next. Versus a conversation that we failed, right? I think the open conversation, foundation is what's important. You're welcome.
Any other thoughts?
Diana was.
Oh, sorry, Diane.
Well, if anybody else, I won't go again until somebody.
I actually have a couple questions. So the contract, I wasn't at Ed Services. The contract, if we, let's say hypothetically, we do a 5-year contract, can that be reconsidered if it's not being met or there's something wrong with eCampus? Because I looked at the documents provided for Ed Services and I didn't see many performance measures as far as, children not showing up, that's bad, but with the children that are showing up, like if you look at the performance measures that's available, they're not really great. And I didn't see any wait, let me clarify. Performance measures that are in the WISE dash local are not very great, but even in the handout that the Ed Services received, there was really not a lot of data around educational performance. So I do have a difficult time doing a 5-year contract if we can't, regardless of attendance, if the results cannot be improved, something would have to change with the way the program is initiated with the students or how we help them if they are virtual learners, because they seem to need a lot of assistance based on the information.
I guess I would say 2 things. One is that I think your question around the academic achievement was feedback that we received along the way and was the driving force behind having quarterly sessions with Ed Services to bring that data for them. So I think it was a gap in the past. And we now have a plan to address that.
Okay.
And then the second part is, if you look at page 11 of the contract.
Okay.
And the top of page 12, there are some guidance for how the grounds for termination of the contract could be a conversation. But again, I think that for me, what's exciting is the level of collaboration, communications will be increased, including data.
Okay.
I'm deferring to let.
Charity? All right, go ahead, Charity.
Thank you. Just a couple of data points, because I was kind of curious as to where we fell versus other areas. And in Michigan, they actually have an early warning intervention and monitoring system that actually provides a 7-step process around data to help students be on track for graduation. Their chronic absenteeism, they've been working on it, dropped from 38.5% to 30.8%. And in another article that was in RAND, it says district try with limited success to reduce chronic absenteeism. 1 in 10 districts reported chronic absenteeism levels of 30% or more. Another 2 in 10 had rates between 20 and 30% during the 2023-2024 year. So unfortunately, we're not alone in this, but maybe taking a look at some of these numbers might be helpful. And to your point, whether it's looking at termination or whether it's looking at an amendment to the contract, I think we could always look at that if we need to. I guess for me, it's what is it that you say, Jared? Don't make good the enemy of, or don't make great the enemy of good. I look at this and say, it doesn't sound like anyone here is saying we shouldn't move forward with eCampus. So do we have an opportunity here to say, we're going to move forward, as it's written here, and go for the 5 years. We have this established liaison, we have regular touch points that the board sets, whether, it's the quarterly that Jason was talking about and providing us data points. And use that and use the data that we find to say, okay, do we need to course correct? Do we need to make modifications? Do we need to, kind of take those steps now? I think we're trying to figure out a lot here, and none of it to me is, we shouldn't do it.
I'll go.
You go.
Yeah, mine was simply, at the committee level, when you had proposed shortening it, and I believe Sam or someone, I think it was you, Sam, said a year, and you said 2 years. And my question to Jared was, Jared, what do you think? What would be a feasible amount? I'm gonna pose that question back again. Jared, what do you think in terms of a time frame to, what's the minimal, I should say, amount of time that you think that we could do some work with this? And I guess I would encourage us to trust our superintendent, whom we hired to do this job, managing the day-to-day things, and trust his guidance.
I think before I answer that question, there's a lot to unpack. Just in the 3 years that I've been here around this contract and around the eCampus school in general. And I think that each year that we bring discussions forward, we're seeing new light, and we're discussing, I think, really important things. And I think the review to this level of depth of this contract is the first time that we've gone to this level of depth, and we've actually held ourselves accountable, not the eCampus or the eCampus board or the eCampus staff, but ourselves accountable to what we really want on that side of the contract, right? And to say, what can we get out of that contract that we feel is important? I think that this is one good step, really, not just a good step. I think it's an excellent step towards what that looks like. Knowing that it takes time to grow all things, a school district in itself. I mean, how long has this school district in itself been around? Hundreds of years, and we're still growing it, right? We're still trying to get it better. It takes time and steps, right? And for me, I would always say, like, when it comes to education in general and how we can try to aim towards that, we can spend a lot of time each year on a yearly contract. We could spend this much time or more on a yearly contract, but the more time we spend working on the admin part of it, the less time we spend on the actual in-class and doing the work that gets us better and gets us to the actual outcomes and aims. So I look at least a 3-year period that lets us get into that contract, start serving the aims and goals towards that contract, and be responsive to those aims and goals of that contract. Goals, whatever else you want to call what we're aiming for here. Because if not, you're just spending your time in admin responsibilities towards that, and you're not really getting into the depths of the learning and the education. A 5-year contract even gives us a lot longer runway, especially when you add in that clause that says there's going to be collaboration and actual review year over year. We didn't have that in previous contracts. That was one of the major things that Craig has been talking about for the last 3 years about accountability and how do we know what we're doing is actually making different steps. And on the eCampus side of that, they kept bringing back data, right? But it was like, this is good data, this is informative, but how does it measure what we want? And having a really good discussion, and I think we've gotten there, at least for this moment in time, to say we know what we want, we've got some things in place now. Now let's give it back to them and their board to show us that this is something that's viable and that we're looking to continue. So those are my inputs.
Go ahead, Dan.
I'm not married to the 5 years, but I agree with the last 3 commenters that I don't want to do this every 3 years. We put in a lot of minutes at Ed Services. Again, we're talking about this. I trust the people to get their job done. I like to go 5 years with that yearly review, with the quarterly input. I think that would be good. Yep. No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sherry.
I guess Sarah and Jared, I'd look to you. Does it help if a contract is aligned to the budget biennial? Or
In
does
this
that not
instance,
matter?
I wouldn't say so.
Okay,
Would you, Sarah? I mean,
Okay, thank you.
So I hesitate with issuing anything over to, I could compromise with the three. I what I fear is that I don't think that anything's gonna, I'm skeptical that things will change in a meaningful way by which the board can hold this particular contract accountable. Because if that were the case, it would have been done. When you kick the can out another 5 years, there's a lot of breathing room for people to say, I'm sorry, but you know, this is no longer a priority right now at the moment. 2 years out, it's a priority. We make it a priority because that's what we do. I'm struggling with 5 years out. I do understand that it is the intention of the administration to bring forward this information and review it and provide a better resolution to the board moving forward to show improvement. But I don't know that there's that level of accountability there with a 5-year contract by doing the same thing again. Right now, chronic absenteeism, there hasn't been any comparative data to show that that is acceptable or not. When it comes to our achievement scores, there hasn't been any comparative data to indicate that our particular online school is doing well and healthy compared to other schools. So we don't even have the basic information to move forward with any type of level of decision making. I'm certainly not comfortable committing to 5 years with that. I'm just not.
Have we ever done a 3-year?
Have we done a 3-year? No, we have not.
So we've only ever done the 5-year contract?
Correct.
Is it possible to do a 3-year contract with a clause in there that if everything is going, you know, as expected, that instead of having to write up a whole new contract, that this contract would be extended for the next 48 months? I don't know about school contracts, if you can do that.
I would say this, like speaking from our lawyer standpoint, anything's doable, but it's not what is considered normal for what these contracts look like and for DPI. And really, you're committing to another board, right? Their ability to educate students as part of our school district, right? And they run that school, right? They have monthly meetings. I go to those meetings just like I go to these board meetings, and have check-ins. You know, that's why on an annual basis, committing to a group of people, you know, on an annual basis, that gets really difficult. How are they supposed to plan over the long term? And so I just want us to think about, I know what we want, right? And what we want is to have a little bit more assurances around things like attendance, assurances around things like other learning development according to learning plans. We're getting that in this contract. We've heard you, and we're putting that in, and they're willing to continue going forward with that.
Go ahead, Sam.
I appreciate what you're saying there, Jared. I do think that's important, and I agree with what Jason said about collaboration, having a board liaison involved. I think that will help a lot. I think it will help both people on the school board understand what is happening in eCampus, and I think it'll help eCampus have a clearer picture of what to aim for moment to moment. With that in mind, I think that it would be a good compromise to amend this document so that it's a 3-year contract instead of a 5-year contract. Keep the yearly evaluations and the quarterly check-ins that we were going to have, and maintain a board liaison, which I'd be willing to volunteer for in that case. I don't know if that's getting ahead of myself. I don't want to step on anyone else who has any further comments, but if no one else has any further comments, I'll make a motion for it.
I second.
Let's hold off on that. It's actually a later part of our agenda.
Oh.
And,
It's in the resolution part of this
and
discussion.
And the way that that might work would be that that would be an amendment to the resolution. Was there any further comments or questions? All right, well, hearing none. We will move on to our reports. That is you, Mr. Superintendent.
Oh, boy. I was just happy I could stand up. So just a fine picture of some of our graduates here, more to come later on in the presentation. Celebrations, Project Search held its graduation Tuesday, June 10th. Project Search is a training program designed to connect young adults with special needs. We work with those at Marport to do that. We had a number of graduates this year. Congratulations to them in the program. Exciting time. Another celebration, our elementary schools continue to host the annual senior walk. This year it was June 9th. This is a tradition where our graduating seniors go back out into the community to their elementary schools and walk through the hallways. They get cheers and paraded around, and all the kids like to look up to them. Many of the seniors who attended our local parochial schools also participated in the senior walks at their parochial schools, returning to those elementary schools and doing the same. We did have, these are congratulations again to our graduates. We did have 285 graduates this year. Schurz Elementary School earned a state recognition for academic achievement and student growth and was named the 2023-2024 Wisconsin School of Recognition School. This award was received for its high impact category. This distinction is based on the rigorous set of criteria, including academic performance, measurable progress, and reducing the achievement gaps, particularly among those with educationally disadvantaged backgrounds. So again, it's another, like they said in their presentation, you don't always want to look at one data point. This is certainly a wonderful way to celebrate them for the 23-24 school year for that academic distinction. Also, another good point for us is we earned the 2025 Best Community for Music Education again award by NAM. NAM celebrates this annually with school districts across the nation. This is our 13th consecutive year, and it honors all these things: robust financial support, fully staffed music program, and diverse offerings. And I just want to say thank you again to our incredible members of our music department and this staff district-wide who help our musicians. And I have one of them for sure who's going into the high school next year, who is just excited as all get out to be part of that program. So congratulations to them. And then an opportunity is our nutrition services, again, is offering free summer meals, breakfast and lunch to children age 18 or younger while at summer school programs and while they're in session. The free meals are open to any child in the community enrolled. They don't need to be enrolled in summer school. They could just come for the lunch. And the summer program runs the 18th through the 18th of July. Meal sites are closed from the 3rd to the 7th. Any questions? LEAP Elementary 4th and 5th grade students visited Watertown City Hall. They got to meet with their former teacher, now Mayor Stocks. The students toured different city departments, learned about voting processes, visited TV, even got to go into the jail cell for a little bit and reconnected with their former teachers. It was a good time had by many.
Not in the jail cells.
No, they actually they went in and yeah,
but the former teachers weren't in the jail cells.
No, they just got to experience what it was like to be in the jail cell, right? On June 2nd, and if you have never ridden in the back of a police car for fun, try it out. On June because you don't want to do it for not fun reasons. June 2nd, select members of the Gosling Band joined also a number of fellow musicians in the Madison area for the world's largest pep band. They got to play the national anthem and between innings for the Mallards game at Warner Park. I guess it was a great experience for them. And then we want to say congratulations to the latest group of RMS students who received their Red Cross, CPR, AED, first aid certifications. And thank you to the RMS for granting those funds for the certifications for, excuse me, from the RMS PTO for their newest, excuse me, mannequin that they got. And then also there are important reminders of a bunch of board meetings coming up. We've got 2 special board meetings, the 24th, as well as June 30th. The 24th is tomorrow night. It has to do with facilities planning. Tomorrow is also my youngest birthday, so hopefully I can get out of here in a decent time. And then June 30th is a school board meeting where we appoint a new member to our school board. And then, of course, the rest of them up there will keep you up to date if anything else happens. Educational Service Center is closed for July 4th. The other thing I will say is that all board members received tonight a budget cycle handbook that we purchased from the WASB. WASB and WASBO work together to talk about and educate you as school board members on the budget cycle and all things fiscal. But this was part of our planning committee as well as our fiscal to take the first steps in really educating you all on school finance and at least the budget cycle. So that's in front of you. Crack it open at your leisure, but I know that Sarah, Ms. Kelly is going to go through those kind of things with you. Any other questions?
Hearing none. Sounds good. Thank you. Before we move on with the rest of your reports, just a refresher to our board members here. The meeting reports, minutes, surveys, that questions and concerns, the discussion, there's not really meant to be a discussion around those reports aside from correcting the information that might not be indicated properly. So if there's a comment in that regard, we'll keep it to that. The other item would be if you do have questions or comments regarding the report, we'll just try to keep those factual and to that particular point. That is really the intention behind the reports and the questions there. So go ahead, Ed Services.
There was a lot of discussion and presentations at the June Ed Services. The WSUD Library Media Team continues to work towards goals outlined. The Future Ready Library Plan included professional growth, welcome and engaging spaces, etc. 270 students were heard from district-wide, reflecting on their experience with curricula and perspectives on next steps. WSD stakeholders were contacted concerning an assessment calendar, and we hope to finalize that calendar this fall. 505 parents completed the parent engagement survey. Jason Bull and Chris Malloy will analyze these findings and bring their assessment to the board committee. And Desha Keeler shared Ames Web Plus data, literacy screener that will be used to develop reading plans. Anything else, Jenny or Jason?
Just a few. We had the access assessment update from Ashley Pirate. We had the technology future ready update that was presented, and then of course we had a nice discussion about the eCampus contract. Thank you.
Any questions for the Ed Services report? All right. Fiscal management.
Sarah, you got the review? Fiscal met last Wednesday. There were no purchases that were over 20,000, but there was one purchase that was close to 20,000. So the committee reviewed that. That was from WiskNet, who provides multiple internet-based services for the district, including the internet and also securely. The committee approved moving forward with that purchase, but there was no resolution needed. The committee looked at the district's liability insurance renewal for 2025-26. Property values increased, just like most property values in the district, and the rate for liability insurance increased slightly. Work comp, that rate went down. So with the increase and the decrease, the overall net increase was just over $7,500 for next year. The committee again approved moving forward, and there was no resolution needed. We discussed again the budget and the potential referendum planning. The budget is on track for 2025-26 with about over $1 million of reductions identified. The committee was given an update on the state as well as the federal education budgets and what that means financially for the district as we know it right now. And next month, we will be taking a look at multiple different scenarios for referendum planning as well as potential budget reduction. We look through the monthly reports for May. Next month, we will look at the last reports for this fiscal year. And for future meeting planning, we will be reviewing the budget and those scenarios for potential referendums in July. Next meeting is July 23rd at 5:30.
Any questions?
All right, thank you, Sarah. Human Resources.
All right, so the Human Resource Committee met on June 16th at 5:30. We had a consent agenda for staff appointments, resignations, and terminations, as well as the summer school consent agenda. Those were pushed to towards the end of the meeting after we had a robust discussion about the hiring process as administrators and certified staff. So the first thing that we discussed was the USI updates for health insurance. The advisor came and let us know what options would be coming available and when the board would be discussing that. Then we had our attorney come in and discuss board member responsibilities and personnel matters to let us know what we can do as an individual and how our actions need to, essentially we need to move as a board as it pertains to any personnel matters. Then we went over the hiring process for administrators and certified staff. There was quite a bit of discussion about it. At the end of discussion, it was summarized that resumes of all candidates selected for interview for certified staff and above would be made available to the board members. The boards will be actively involved in the hiring and interviewing of dean positions and above. Finalists for the dean positions and above will be required to participate in a closed session board interview. Then the administrator contracts will be a 2-year contract for all new hires. Dr. Burke will meet with the board to discuss performance and contract renewals for all administrators. And then after we had that discussion, we did approve the consent agendas for this board meeting, June 23rd. We went into a closed session around 7:48 p.m. and reconvened into an open session again at 8:51 p.m. There was some future meeting planning, and we will be meeting again July 21st at 5:30.
Thank you. Any questions for the HR report? Go ahead.
I posed this question to Tammy, but I'm gonna pose it to the board as well. And I understand your point, Tammy, but the question that I have is, it talks about the action items from, was it number 2 for hiring process administrators, goes to the summary, I guess. I'm curious on what are the action items that are there. Typically an action item, this is what's going to happen, and this is kind of who's gonna do it, etc. So I don't know if we want to have that discussion now or later. Like I had requested that the action items are currently they're located within the paragraph. There's over 1,200 words in that paragraph. And so I believe it was Sam a number of months ago had requested, and we kind of moved that to a procedure that action items are pulled out and very specific in there. And especially in something such as this, where we're talking about changing a process, where not only are we looking at the administrative piece, how we're involved in the interviews, but also looking at what's our process from the board level standpoint. Some clarity around that. And so I'm asking again that those be pulled out so that they're easily accessible, easily referenced, because we hadn't had multiple at least two, and I was guilty of it when I first started doing planning. I'm like, hey, they're kind of right in there, but it was, the conversation was occurred, and also points very well taken that it's much easier to have them itemized out. Are they done? Are they not done? Who's responsible for it, etc. So I'm going to request that again, and I don't know if that needs to come as part of the discussion piece later, but if we need to pull this particular one out, we can do that. The second piece is number 5, talking about performance and contract renewal of administrators. I'm going to ask that that paragraph be struck altogether and that be removed, being that that wasn't part of our agenda for that.
I'm
So
sorry,
if it's
I'm
not
sorry,
an
what?
agenda item,
Which one is it?
it's performance and contract renewal of administrators. If that's not on an agenda to be talked about, how can we really take action or make decisions and things through that? So I don't know what our process is. If you can clarify that, or do we just remove it? What does that look like? We talk about transparency, and we want to make sure that not only our board members have that opportunity, but we're going to be allowing for public input in upcoming board meetings. So if it's not properly on the agenda, how can we have that conversation or make decisions? I know myself, I wasn't present for this meeting because I don't remember if this is the one where my daughter was senior night. Yet I did pose questions to what was on the agenda. If it's not there, how do I participate? How do I get to put questions out there? It's just, there's a lot of questions I have around that.
I would just like to know why you want to strike out number 5.
Well,
If there-
hold on.
Go ahead.
This is not the section of the agenda for
Understood.
discussion. I'm hearing a board member that's potentially requesting an agenda item to be placed on for board discussion. And we can have that discussion at a later time when it's appropriate.
Basically, during the consent agenda, if you want to pull the item, right,
So
and
then
or
we-
and or refer anything back to a committee, at that time is the time to do that.
So my question is, through this, that's where I thought this, if it's making the changes, do I just, what the changes is? I guess this has never been done in my 3 years, some of the changes and things that way. So this is new. So I don't know, please help me. It's a learning process for all of us. Should I have waited until we get to the point, like, because you had said at the beginning of this that notify any changes, so that's what I'm doing, suggested changes. If that's not the place, just let me, how do we do it in the future?
So-
We do better.
So, I think that you are partially correct in stating that that this was a practice that has been somewhat lax. It started to slide over the years, but this is how this is supposed to be addressed. And, the best way to address this part of the agenda is to mainly ask like the type of question, I didn't gather from the minutes that this was discussed. Was that discussed? Yes, okay. That's about it. Or there's this correction in the report or the minutes that need to be changed based on my observation of the recording. Can we make that change? This particular
Would be better later. Okay.
would be either like, for instance, if you happen to have a desire to strike some particular language for whatever particular reason, that would come in the form of a motion to amend that particular resolution.
And that would be later.
That would be during the consent agenda where the action item is.
Got it.
This, the report where it is reports, it's simply that, it's just reporting out on what happened, right? And having some quick clarification questions. If there's action or a larger discussion, then when it gets to that point of the resolution to take action, you make a motion to pull it from the consent agenda for further discussion. And that's where you can have those kinds of
Which
discussions.
was my original plan, but then I got confused based on what
Okay.
you had said and brought it through, so I
Sure.
took it too literally.
Sure, sure. No, I'm trying to find a way, but
This is learning for all of
Yep,
us.
and this is why planning is looking to bring in somebody for Robert's Rules of Order training and stuff like that, right? I mean, it's a fairly new group of people to a board, right?
any other questions on the human resource report? Hearing none. How about the planning report?
There was no plan in this one.
All right, sounds good. How about the policy report?
There was a policy meeting this month. Took place on Wednesday, June 11th, started at 5:30. And we had quite a number of items on our plate. So I'll move through them in a timely fashion. We started out discussing policy 2414, human growth and development. We made several adjustments, all of which have come before the board for first read tonight. That was the recommendation of the committee. We moved on to discuss curriculum revision. We made an adjustment that was previously discussed in policy 2210, but we also discussed policies 2220, 2230. I gotta find them. There's a couple of them in here. Quite a number. 2521 and 2510. All of those are coming before the board for first read tonight. So if you have further questions about the details in those, we can look over that during that discussion period. We moved on to talking about 5511, which is dress and grooming for students, alongside the companion policies 4216 and 3216, which are staff and dress grooming, which are two different things. We talked about making several changes to the student dress and grooming policy, which is of course coming before the board for first read tonight for further discussion. We talked about some of the changes that are being made to staff dress and grooming, which led into a discussion of our next agenda item, which was 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. We discussed that at length. Ultimately, it was recommended by the board to bring it for first read, or recommended by the committee to bring it for first read. We moved on to some discussion of clarifying language in policies 5136, personal communication devices, and 5362, anti-bullying, which both deal with cyberbullying and certain other things that have to do with cell phones. No substantial changes were made to the nature of either of those policies. There was a clarification added to 5136 about the intent of people using technology for the purposes of whistleblowing and how we do not want to discourage that behavior. And that will be taken into account if any sort of reporting situation happens in that context. It will be evaluated alongside with the rest of any evidence. We moved on to have a discussion about 5780, the student and parents' rights policy, bringing in some other elements from Assembly Bill 510, the Wisconsin State Assembly Bill. Ultimately, that did not move forward for first read. That's going to be coming back to July's policy meeting for a further discussion. We talked about the Neola Policy 8000 group, and we talked about personal background checks, school calendars, the school day and school closure, along with a variety of other policies, which are coming before the board for first read. We had a brief discussion about policies that don't have a Neola match, as well as policies that are still in the parking lot or that need some more process work. And we talked about the development process and approving that book at the board meeting tonight. We concluded and adjourned at 8:25 p.m. And our next meeting was going to be on July 9th, but we realized that that's actually a scheduling conflict. So we're sorting out what the best day would be. I think it's, Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 22nd or 24th, correct? Yeah. So we're gonna figure that out probably tomorrow. Any questions?
Questions for the policy report?
No, but I do have revision. 5136, personal communication devices. In the third line, it says Dr. Burke shared some concerns from an email Diana Johnson sent as I was not able to attend. What happened, Dr. Burke shared that I had some concerns, but none of my concerns on that policy were brought forth to the committee level. And then the sentence after that said she raised a point regarding enforcement, questioning, et cetera, et cetera. That was actually Lori that brought up the concern regarding a point, the enforcement. As the next sentence, Ms. Johnson clarified her concern. Again, that was Lori that had done that. And later on, so anywhere from the rest of that sentence where it said Diana was not Diana. So I guess my question here is, you know, yes, I always read through these. That's just my nature. I did watch the videos of each of them. When I was chair, it was a direction that our job as chairperson is to read through and make sure that things are accurate. I don't, with new chairs right now, I don't know if that's something that's been communicated there, but that's the primary responsibility. I hate having to be the one looking like the white glove kind of a thing. Yet we do want to make sure that it's accurate. So this isn't toward anybody or anything. They're easy mistakes to make. But at the same time, you know, when community members will ask me about X, Y, or Z, well, that was, you know, so we just need to make sure that they're accurate.
So I appreciate the comment. And I guess I would echo those concerns that that responsibility belongs to all of us as board members to read through the minutes, to also indicate how that's actually correct, but it's also more imperative that the chairs of those committees are making sure of the accuracy of those meeting minutes. And if it means that you're reviewing the video as well, also noting that they're preliminary minutes. We're not perfect, you know, and sometimes that we can make mistakes. They're not actually official minutes until the board actually approves those minutes. And that's part of the consent agenda moving forward. So I think Lynn got the notes on.
So I did I do it appropriately that time?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so. I appreciate the concerns on the minutes, and I think when we call out those consent agenda items for the minutes, then we would just make a friendly amendment, more or less, just to make those changes to the minutes. Is that appropriate? All right. Sounds good. Was there any other questions that you have? All right. Subcommittee and Ed Services Policy Committee. Was there a subcommittee for the Ed Services and Policy Committee?
Well, we haven't met since
Okay.
since May.
So then
21st summary.
This was the May 21st summary.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I can read it. We met on May 21st, and I don't remember quite what time it was, quite frankly. It was in the afternoon. I remember that. But we met on May 21st, I think around 3 p.m. It was myself, Dan Voltner, who's the chair of Ed Services, and we had a variety of other board members present. And we discussed the nuts and bolts of the human growth and development policy, which is coming before the board for first read tonight. If you have any questions about that policy, we can discuss that during the first read of 2414 and its accompanying administrative guidelines. We adjourned at 5:46 p.m.
all right, thank you. Any questions for the subcommittee report? All right, thank you. That brings us to consent agenda number 6, the consent agenda resolution number 9410, which includes the minutes, the committee summaries, the personnel and staffing report, approval of the bills, first and second reading of the district policies. Do I hear a motion?
So this is where we move and we second, then it goes to discussion and we have all that, right?
Correct.
All right.
I'll second.
All right. It has been moved by Diana and seconded by, Sam.
So then can I make a motion to, pull out the policy minutes and amend them where it discusses, what are we looking at? Where it discusses 5136. That's the policy on, student cell phone usage. Yeah, 5136 personal communication devices, to strike all mention of, board member Diana Johnson from that first paragraph in 5136.
So I guess I would say it would just be a friendly, more of a friendly.
Yeah, we
amendment.
took that under on friendly amendment already.
Okay, gotcha.
We want to make sure we get the minutes correct. Does that suffice to what you're? Okay, sounds good. All right. Any other discussion?
No, that's not everything here, including first read and second.
That is everything that's under the consent agenda resolution 9410.
Okay.
So if you have an amendment that you would like to bring.
Yes, so the amendment on that HR policy that I talked about.
And which policy
And
is that?
so, sorry, not HR policy, that was from number 5. In their performance, no, sorry, let me look.
You wanted number 5 in the minutes.
So if we
for
go
the
to the minutes,
yeah.
Page
let me
2.
go back and look. And I think I misspoke, hold on, because I'm looking at the wrong thing. It wasn't regarding contract renewal, it was, yeah, it was 5, performance and contract renewal of administrators. So whether we strike it or whether we refer that one back to committee, it
Okay,
was.
no,
So no,
we need to hear a motion.
oh, sorry,
So if you're,
well, I'll move to strike it,
you
because
move,
then we can have discussion and go
You-
from there, right?
you'll
okay,
make an amendment to,
To the,
what policy number is it?
it's not a policy.
It's the minutes.
The minutes.
So it's a,
HR.
so it's a minute, like a friendly amendment to
Yes.
make change to the
Yes.
minutes. Okay, like we just did with the
Yes.
policy. Got
So
it.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment
Sure.
to change the HR minutes to strike number 5 about performance and contract renewal of administrators. So now we have motion, second discussion, right?
Not necessarily, but, yeah, so are we, do we feel like that accurately reflects the discussion?
We do that without, can we have a discussion on it without a motion and a second though?
Well,
When we're talking a friendly amendment, yes, and
Okay.
he proposed a friendly amendment, you agreed to a friendly amendment.
Got it. Just learning.
And is there opposition to that friendly amendment?
I don't see why we're striking it. I'm trying to
It's-
understand, I'm sorry, or friendly amendment or whatever it is,
Okay.
whatever the appropriate lingo is.
May I try to accurately
Sure.
intervene here?
Please.
Tell me if I'm wrong. The discussion point that you're making is that discussion that we had went outside the purview of the agenda for the night,
Correct.
which did not denote that we were talking about either evaluation of a superintendent, or excuse me, administration, right? Or contract of an administration. Is that correct?
Correct.
And therefore,
Contract renewal, not.
she's suggesting we strike any mention of that because it shouldn't have happened as part of the agenda.
Because the agenda was talking about hiring process.
If you strike it in the minutes as though it didn't happen.
My concern with that is if it was a conversation that did happen, it should accurately reflect that in the minutes.
Yeah, I know.
If it was an oversight for agending that particular item, then it should.
I mean, if you watch the meetings, it was fully discussed the hiring process, even if it was a contract renewal. I suppose if I made a friendly amendment, I would just change the heading to say end renewal, because that's how the conversation went. Everybody was involved in that discussion.
Everybody except me.
Well,
I'm
that,
not
yeah,
present, so if we all are allowed to have voice in what's happening.
you
then it
absolutely
should
are
be-
allowed to have a voice, but we did not go outside of the scope of the discussion. Everybody was well aware prior to the HR meeting that we were going to have a discussion about how we were gonna move forward as a board as it came to hiring staff members.
And this was not regarding hiring, this is regarding contract renewal and performance. That's exactly my point.
So what happens to that staff member if we do not renew their contract, Diane? They would get fired, would they not?
Oh, no. Time out. We're not having a discussion about something that's not on the agenda. So we have to be careful about that.
But that's exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
Had a Conversation about something that wasn't on the agenda
May I
at
make
that
a,
particular meeting,
may I make a suggestion for remedy?
please.
Suggestion for remedy would be to accurately strike from the minutes a discussion that shouldn't have happened based on the agenda. Then if that discussion still needs to happen, a second motion to refer back to committee a discussion on that topic, which would be, in this case, evaluation and contracting of administration, right? At the next HR committee meeting, have that discussion, do what you will, based on the members present at the committee, and bring it forward as a discussion point to the next board meeting for approval.
I like that, I'd like to do that.
That would be probably one of the easiest ways to remedy and still have the communication that needs to be had. And also strike anything from an agenda that wasn't properly posted. If we don't strike it, we would have some liability in having endorsed conversation that wasn't agended.
Okay, we'll make that friendly amendment. I guess I don't recall the nature of the conversation, so I do remember we had an attorney present and that was part of the discussion to ask particular questions when it comes to board member responsibilities and personnel matters. But if it had gone beyond the scope of making a recommendation or making a course of action other than that, then I support the friendly amendment, and so we will make that change.
So we need to make a second motion. then to
Not
refer
on
back-
that.
No, to refer that back to committee.
There would be,
I think the conversation does need to occur. I
right,
think that it's valuable,
so
so.
do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make
to-
a motion to refer that performance and contract renewal of administrators back to committee.
Okay, is there a second? It has been moved and seconded by Dan to refer back to committee the performance and non-renewal of administrators for further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy,
Yes.
Dan Miltner,
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler,
Yes.
Tammy Fournier,
No.
Lori Hoffman,
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam Neal.
Yes.
And the motion carries. We will be referring back to the HR committee, the performance and non-renewal contracts for administrators. All right. Was there any other discussion on the consent agenda? here?
Yes. If you want to go first, go ahead. I have a number of them.
One would be a friendly amendment to 5511 dressing grooming, subpoint D. Sam, it's what I had emailed you about based on community feedback. There was somebody that was talking about the headwear beyond religious and or sensory sensitivity. for folks that get braids done, people generally in Black or African American communities, within the first 24 to 48 hours, they typically wear something over them in order to protect them. So I don't know if we could amend that to just include religious purposes, cultural, or sensory sensitivity, and maybe even just do an EG.
We can also add health or safety.
Okay.
So I'm trying to understand. Do you have a question about the minutes?
No, sorry, I thought they were all the consent agenda was.
The our consent agenda items is your. I'm confused by the motion, because in this particular case, you would need to make a motion to pull out a particular policy from the consent agenda for further discussion.
Yeah, so you're not talking about changing the minutes, you're talking about
Correct. So,
pulling the policy itself for further discussion.
thank you, Jared, yeah.
And then possibly making an amendment to that for first read or whatever read it was.
Yes, then I would like to make that motion to move back to
So you're moving, which policy is it?
5511.
Okay, so you're moving to remove number 5511 from the consent agenda for further consideration.
Please and thank you.
And what was the title of that one?
That's, yeah.
Dress and grooming,
Student dress and grooming specific.
student.
And that one is up for first read tonight?
Yep.
So we're taking, this would be voting at.
No, there's no discussion,
Sorry.
or there's a motion on the table.
Sorry. we have-
Is there a
I'll
second?
And I can ask.
So it's been moved by Charity and seconded by Diana to remove policy 5511, student dress and grooming from the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Have discussion. There's a motion.
I'm sorry. Yes, discussion, please. Sorry.
I'm just wondering why. We want to kick it back to committee because of that. It doesn't, but this is first read, wouldn't those suggestions?
So
then be a part
the
of
motion
second
is to
read?
pull it off of the consent agenda for further
Oh.
consideration.
Oh,
So
okay, got it.
so-
Have more discussion. I'm with you now. This is too confusing.
This is the way it's supposed to work.
No, I understand. It's just,
Yep.
yes, confusing in there.
So the discussion would entail, why do you feel that it needs to be pulled off of the consent agenda?
Right.
Because you feel that there are alterations that should be discussed now, right? Okay.
Please and thank you.
Is there any further discussion about why it needs to be pulled off of the consent agenda at this point? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Carl Shorzy.
Yes.
Dan Voltner,
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
No.
Charity Chandler.
Yes.
Tammy Fournier.
Yes.
Lori Hoffman,
Yes.
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Sam Awiniel.
No.
And the motion carries. We will pull 5511 off of the consent agenda for further consideration. Any other particular agenda? Any other discussion regarding resolution 9410?
So if we want to have conversation about anything on first and second read, we have to pull them off. Is that
Correct.
Okay, so 2240.
You can pull multiples off at once.
Perfect.
Yes.
Single motion, yeah.
Perfect. 2240, controversial issues, 5136, personal communication devices, 8210, school calendar. That's it.
So there's a motion to also remove 2240, 5136, and 8210 from the consent agenda for further consideration. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Diana, and seconded by Charity. Roll call vote, please.
Discussion.
I'm sorry. Discussion.
The reason why I would like those is I put forth multiple questions for each of those that I'm asking to be pulled off, of which very few, if any, had been brought up at the committee level. So therefore, in order to have those voices heard, I'd like those pulled off so that we can hear those at this point in time. Again, I was unable because I believe at this meeting, my daughter was playing in the state championship softball game or the state tournament game. So I feel my voice should be heard.
Any other comments or questions? I personally feel that a number of these particular items that were on the consent agenda had a robust discussion at the committee, including a number of different objections and discussion. The purpose of the board meeting would be to have a better understanding of either whether you as a board have enough information to move forward with a decision, or whether that discussion should be referred back to the committee. So if there's a desire to have further discussion around that particular agenda item, or those particular consent agenda items, that's the purpose of the discussion. So otherwise we move forward with what the committee is recommending. But that's the reason why I would be opposed to pulling this out for further consideration. Diana.
I would normally agree with you if all voices were allowed to be heard. I shared this with proper channels with the chair. If the chair doesn't share those, is there a different method that I'm unaware of? But if that's shared with the chair and the chair doesn't share that with the committee, then we're basically saying that those voices aren't welcomed, aren't allowed. That's how I'm feeling right now. And I feel that I'm one of 9. We're each one of 9. All of us deserves to have our voice heard. If I didn't bring it up ahead of time, I'd understand what you're saying. But because I went through the proper channels to express these issues or concerns that I have with it moving forward, that if sharing that with the chairperson isn't the right means to do it, I still want to address today. I'll still get those addressed if I have to put it out there somehow and have community members put it out there. I represent the community as well. And some of these are things that I've heard from community members. They have the right to be heard also. And so with it, I guess what's the best method? I'm learning, we're all learning. So if it's not to go to the chair, if it's to go to all members, and it's all of our responsibility to make sure all questions are asked, then let's have that direction moving forward, line in the sand. But for today, my questions deserve to have voice. The community deserves to have some of the things addressed.
Go ahead, Lori.
In my experience on other boards, I found it expedient for people when they can't attend, be it a board member or a community member, they can't attend, that they write a letter, or in your case, just bullet points or whatever, and then they add that to the agenda. So everybody gets it, everybody can see it. And I think it's a better way of communicating than sending it to one person and having that person try to interpret what you're saying, whereas we could all see it.
I don't disagree. Our common practice in my 3 years on the board, this is year number 4, has been it's gone to the chair. I have no problem changing that as a practice if that's something we agree, but this was practice up to this point. So we shouldn't change something.
And
for
this
that.
is
Moving
new to
forward,
me.
no,
Yeah.
understood and agreed.
Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think I would actually agree with what Diana's saying pretty strongly. The only clarification is I think that if you're going to send those questions to the superintendent and the committee chair, you should do so before 9:30 p.m. the previous night on a work night. There's not necessarily enough time for people to go through that number of questions, especially when some of them are
I
pretty
believe this was
detailed.
Sent 2 days prior.
And my second question
Mhm.
was, I'm not prepared to vote on something like this one way or the other. Unless I have details on what you have problem with each one of these, because just a general, let's throw it all back to committee is something that, I just don't have enough information to make a judgment on.
But what we're saying is to pull it out and have conversation here tonight. It's not to refer it back to committee, is my understanding. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
So you
I
did,
misunderstood. I apologize.
you did send that email on 9:31 on Tuesday, June 10th, the night before we were going to have our meeting.
Oh, okay.
So it's just for clarification.
Any further discussion on the motion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Carl Shorzy,
No.
Dan Boatman,
Yes.
Craig Wortman,
No.
Charity Chandler,
Yes.
Tammy Fournier,
No.
Lori Hoffman,
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam Allen.
No.
And the motion fails for lack of a majority. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, roll call vote on the consent agenda without the what was it, 5511 was it that we pulled out?
Yes.
All right. Which was student dress and grooming. Roll call vote, please.
Carl Shorzy.
Yes.
Dan Boatner,
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler.
No.
Tammy Fournier,
Yes.
Lori Hoffman,
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
No.
Sam Allen.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Back to policy 5511, the student dress and grooming. Who? Sorry,
That was me.
that was you, okay.
Like I said, it was just, there had been feedback from a community member, that had mentioned another potential use case for adding headwear. And so when I was taking a look at the policy, where it would make sense is there was a sub letter D, which was around, headwear may be worn only for religious purposes or for sensory sensitivity. And Jared, you put out the phrase health or safety.
There's a couple of different thoughts around that, not only the one you mentioned, but for athletes who have had concussions, or students who have need in health capacity, temporary or long-term, or IEPs, I think it would be good to just add that language. It's an oversight that I think we may have missed. So thank you for catching it.
So does health and safety cover your concern? Adding health and safety?
Yeah, I feel if we're putting that forward for enforcement from the staff that are in the schools, and Jared, you feel based on your experience working with them that health and safety would encompass
I think that's pretty easy for us to delineate.
Okay.
Health and safety.
then I'm open to that. To making a motion to add religious purposes, health and safety, or for sensory sensitivity.
So there's an amendment to add that particular language to the policy. It was moved by Charity and seconded by Lori. Further discussion?
Yeah, if I may ask, because your original statement was about the use of certain things for keeping certain hairstyles in place, correct? And so I appreciate that as a proposal. I'm not sure, does health and safety really cover that item. I would almost say that you would need to have a separate clarification, just for the purposes of clear language and for the purposes of hairstyling. I think you would almost need to have that. Then the question is, are people allowed to wear curlers while they're walking around school? I don't know. I mean, that's the closest thing I can think of, but, what do you have any thoughts on that, Jared, immediately?
The reason I was going to health or safety is because I think it fits under the conversation piece that was brought up. But there are other health and safety reasons, right, for head covering. Especially if you're, welding, you want to have a helmet on, right? I mean, that's a head covering that, well, again, we missed under a broad view. If you're, in our family and consumer education class, a hairnet might be reasonable for some people.
Sure.
Right? So I think that, when it comes to a student saying, hey, I just had some of these done, right? And, not only my hairstylist, but culturally it's recommended to have this, on for 24, 48 hours, having that leeway with the building principal to be able to have that conversation and determine that and, being able to resolve that, I think it would cover that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
Is there more going with dress and grooming we can add to this, or how does this work? Because I had a number of things in dress and grooming as well that were not addressed.
Hold for further discussion, so this would be the time.
This
Yep.
would be
We
the
have
time.
to act on the motion first and then do.
Yes, that's correct.
That's what
We're,
I'm wondering. Do we
the
have to do
discussion is
individual-
about the amendment that
Okay.
she brought.
That's what I'm asking.
Mhm. Okay. So, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay.
Jared, do you have any wording prepared for that?
I think if we just say, based on Jared's recommendation, if we say religious purposes, comma, health and safety, or for sensory sensitivity, that sounds like based on Jared's conversation, that would encompass what we needed to.
But the hair treatment for cultural purposes is not covered in that, correct?
Well, Jared.
It's actually a health or safety question. The reason they do it is, for the protection of that first,
Mhm. For the protection of the hair.
couple days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy,
Yes.
Dan Boltner,
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler.
Yes.
Tammy Fournier.
Yes.
Lori Hoffman.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam Oweneel.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Any further discussion about dress and grooming?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Do I do these one at a time and vote on them, or can we
Please,
blanket them?
please.
Okay, first one. On page 1, it talks about invading the rights of others. I don't remember what paragraph, I'm sorry. That one I didn't have written out.
You're talking about the first paragraph in bold, the second sentence on the second line. The board will not interfere with the right of students and their parents to make decisions regarding their appearance, except when their choices interfere with the educational program of schools. Or are you talking about in a different area?
I see. I just don't understand what invading the rights of others means. But this is first read, so you guys can talk about that during second read. That's a minor one.
I think that was language that we had there, and it was.
I didn't hear any of that to be altered when I watched the minutes. I could have missed it, but I'll look back at that one for sure. All right, number 3. There was a conversation about the rib tank tops, also what Sam described as A shirts. I've never heard that terminology as A shirts. As an educator this is my 30th year in public education. Those shirts you would find in the undergarment section. They are undergarments. Can't we just leave it at no undergarments, plain and simple? If parents and students don't know what A shirts are in that language, why have them there? We're talking about less than 1% of the kids that are doing that. So I just think if we strike that verbiage altogether, because it falls under, there's a more derogatory term, and I agree with you that we don't necessarily want to use. The first word is wife. There's a second one with, I'm talking about.
That's the least offensive of the
Right,
terms for
I'm
that
not
shirt.
saying that
Yeah.
we use that, but those particular shirts are undergarments, and we specifically state no undergarments, so I think we're covered. That would be my proposal.
I can see where you're coming from. I feel like that's in a little bit of a gray area, but I think that we were adding that for further clarification as to what constitutes inappropriate wear because it's a gray area item.
But if we don't know what an A shirt is, it's not providing clarification.
I'm not sure about that. I feel like if it's outlining what an A shirt is, if a person's uncertain about that, they can look up clarification. But I think that the important thing about the policy is that it is laying out what is and is not allowed in that regard.
I heard, sorry, I heard the comment made that less than 1% of the student body is
Would be wearing
would
those.
be wearing those, and I don't have any evidence to believe that or otherwise.
Do you have any belief or otherwise to disbelieve that? Do we have any data? We had asked, the committee, we had asked for data coming forward, and then this was propelled after it went to vote, you know, moving it forward, that this was brought back without the data and things that Jared was gonna work on, so we don't have data that says that that's false either.
I like the language as is, in the sense that it spells out what it is that is not allowed in the dress code. Go ahead.
Shouldn't we be taking these one at a time, rather than like doing this bucket list and then we have to vote on the
We are
bucket list?
taking it one at a time.
Yeah, this is one of them.
This is one.
It's specifically under subsection 3.
Okay, I've seen.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Mhm.
And Diana, in reading right now, there's was under B, or in that top person, right?
Yes, I thought we were doing like.
No, I said, I pulled that one since I didn't remember where it was, and this is the first read that document. Rather than waste everyone's time, I'd look for that and bring that forward at a different point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments on that? Okay, what's the next one?
No, we're doing one at a time, I thought. Are we voting them one at a time?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
But Carl's requested.
that would mean that I didn't hear an amendment to to this particular policy, nor have I heard any motion to refer it back to committee because there's further work that has to be done. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of, are you making the case that there's more work that needs to be done on the policy?
Yes.
Or do we have enough information to move forward with this being a policy
So-
under first read?
I guess my question is with the other things that I have other things to bring up that would say, okay, we can refer back to committee. I thought we were doing them one at a time.
Yeah, and
So
I
that's where
feel like
I
that,
need to say, okay, we'll make an amendment to remove the words A shirts. You know, I guess I'm learning, I don't know how to do this. This would have been so much easier had these comments been brought up at the committee level. So discussion could have taken place there as opposed to here.
then in that case, what you're gonna want to do is refer this particular, make the case to the board that there's further work that needs to be done on this particular policy to refer it back to committee. And if the board
I
doesn't,
had confidence that it would, this is the second month in a row that comments have not been brought forth at the committee level. Therefore, this then becomes, I don't know what else.
so in this particular case, the board has to weigh whether or not
Okay,
the,
then I will go through the other ones and then we can weigh if
Okay.
it's worthwhile going there. Another item I brought up was number 7. I foresee that this piece is gonna be a part of the policy referenced often, especially with high school students.
you said number 7.
Number 7, it has the words lewd
Right.
and vulgar. What's the statement? there?
It's item G on the revised
Okay.
policy. Yeah, you're looking at item G.
Letter G, it
Mhm.
says apparel.
That has words or
Thank
pictures
you.
on it is allowed so long as the words and pictures are not obscene, lewd, vulgar, indecent, or plainly offensive, or can be plausibly interpreted as promoting or depicting illegal activity, including but not limited to illegal drug use or underage alcohol consumption or inciting violence.
So when we look at the original Neola policy, it didn't have all of these details in it. These would have been things that would have been more administrative guidelines, whatever. My statement here is if we're gonna have specific things in the policy, then they should be clearly understood by the majority of our public and the majority of our students. I don't believe that many of them know what lewd means. So if my suggestion would be changing lewd to the words crude and offensive. That's what it means. It's plain, pretty easy to understand. Vulgar. So what does vulgar mean? We're talking a fifth grader. They may not know what vulgar is. So can we simply say not in good taste? Plainly offensive. What is it to be, why is the word plainly here? What's the difference between plainly offensive, offensive? What does it mean to be plainly offensive? I guess I'm not understanding there. What does plausibly interpreted mean? Can't we just say that we don't allow illegal activity such as but not limited to drug and alcohol use that incites violence? So my suggested revision, and although yes, it had a lot of bullet points, I also had suggested revisions with it. So the suggested revision would read as follows. Apparel that has words or pictures on it is allowed so long as the words and pictures are not obscene, crude, offensive, or not in good taste, period. Apparel cannot suggest or make reference in any way to illegal behaviors, including but not limited to sex, drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, or violence. So, in my opinion, the way that that is worded, most, at least middle to upper elementary school and above students will understand the way that's written as opposed to what is presented in policy.
Okay. Were there any other ones?
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead, Jerry.
So under G, the wording that is there, it was proffered by our attorney. Those are legally defensible terms that they would prefer us using. Just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Charity.
Are we determining that sex is obscene, lewd, or vulgar for the purpose of this conversation? And if we're not, do we include that based on what was just presented? Do we need to, we talked about alcohol, drug, inciting violence, so I guess I'm just wondering, are we calling sex obscene, lewd, or vulgar?
A public display of sex.
Anything, insinuation, hinting, graphics.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're asking? Can you give me a little bit more information?
Well, in human growth and development episode, we've talked about, so from an educational perspective, you could have educational components of sex.
So we're talking about clothing.
Yeah, this says
No,
apparel.
Yeah, just from yes.
5511. So, and that's why I'm asking for clarification, because this might be a little bit more relevant for 2240, I think. But in regards to a public display of sex on an article of clothing, can you give me an example of where that might not fall into the classification of obscene, lewd, or vulgar?
If somebody had a photo of a naked person, but it is showing all of the medical names of their anatomy, for instance, which could be argued that it's educational, like a Grey's Anatomy kind of thing. And I know that it's very highly unlikely for somebody to wear it.
Skeleton, or is it an actual like skinned drawing of a man or a woman fully, like in this vision you're creating? Because a skeleton I'd be okay with, but if I'm gonna see.
Well, when Diana said sex, that's what popped into my head was, okay, what are we just saying? And we're allowing the administrator, which is totally fine then, to say, okay, that display on a shirt is not appropriate.
Oh, okay, I mean, you have another question of whether or not this particular policy needs further work.
And can I clarify really quick? This policy is going to go back for a second read where it will be discussed further at the policy committee. So
And
there
it's
is
certainly up to the chair to
Yeah.
pull that forward for further discussion if there's particular concern about that.
Sure. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
going back to the vocabulary, thank you, Jared, for the clarification on that. My suggestion
No problem.
recommendation would be in parentheses, maybe then to put the clarifying lewd, especially. I don't think people understand, just the clarifying language there. Another one, number 8. Sorry. Letter H.
H, yeah.
Bottoms should be at least fingertip to length. So I had sent each of you an email earlier today. I apparently missed the deadline to get that as part of board docs. I just went through as I'm sitting at my daughter's softball tournament in Indiana and pulled out pictures of, I just went online shopping kind of thing. What does, fingertip length kind of thing look like? I actually went into my daughter's closet today, and this is a pair of athletic shorts, her athletic shorts, and they don't meet standard. We actually had a student here earlier today that was here, and hers wouldn't have met standard. If you look at the illustrations that were there, fingertip length is different things for different kids, for different age levels. So that's the first point. The second point I want to reference is, if you think about the number of students, like if you think about what I'm wearing today and we're sending those kids to the office, one of my questions typically is, what ramifications is that going to have? Intended or unintended consequences. Number one, we're sending how many kids out of class? They're missing valuable instruction. Number two, calling parents to remedy the situation. Parent might not be home, so they're gonna have to miss work, or else the student's gonna have to go home. What if there's no one there? Then they're sitting in the office all day. Number three, what I am wearing is very typical if you spent any time at the middle school, elementary school, high school. So now we're saying to parents, length, if you think about where that, go home and look at kids. Where is that length on them? Do they make those for girls especially? There was a young lady who spoke to the board in public comment last month and said, is this discriminatory? Because they don't typically make shorts that long across the board. So that's an added cost there. And the last one in that is, from the teacher standpoint, no teacher wants to send a kid to the office. When you send a kid to the office, you are breaking down relationships. And so with that, kids don't learn from people they don't like. And if you're repeatedly sending them to the office, we're now inhibiting the learning. We're making it more difficult for the teachers. So these are all different situations. I would strongly advise us to not use that fingertip length. In the past, it was, and there's a verbiage in this document that says if it's not disrupting the learning environment. So my daughter came home when we first started talking about this months and months and months ago. And she was, Mom, at the high school, it's pretty plain and simple. No boobs, no butts, no belly buttons. That would be disrupting the learning environment. And we've the no belly buttons, okay, that show the teachers have to touch. No butts, okay, your butt cheeks can't be hanging out, plain and simple. No boobs, gotta be pretty, I don't want to say conservative, but I don't think I need to paint a picture for y'all there. So with that, I guess I'll just leave it with that. And then the last thing is, we've spent a lot of time talking about dress code. We've got so many other things to be talking about. The one thing that we didn't talk about in the dress code, yet we're talking about length of this, and we've talked about tank tops. We don't talk about wearing costumes to school, headbands, with cats' ears and devil's horns and tails. And those are things, to me, that's disrupting the learning environment. Yet we're talking about other things that don't really pertain to that. So these are multiple reasons why I think this needs to go back for first read, not for second read.
Thank you for that. There was a specific question placed to the attorney, as I recall, about the language about length being utilized or measurement when it comes to the policy. And the attorney suggested that fingertip length is language that other school districts use to enforce this particular policy, just for clarification purposes.
There are some, it's not super highly common, but yes, there are some.
Lori?
We already have something about headgear, so I think you're good there. When I got your email, I was literally sitting there wearing shorts. So I got up and I was trying to figure out, like, where's my fingertips? being that person who doesn't always like to follow the letter of the law, I decided to move my arms up, right, or down, and kids will do that, right? And I found that fingertip was very liberal if you move your arms. And I think that the fingertip metric based on that is fairly reasonable. If you make somebody put their arms way down, of course, that's not reasonable. But I think that this being something that is used as a metric, nobody's running around with tape measures. It sounds reasonable to me based on just trying it out and seeing where do my fingertips fall. And if you move your arms a little bit up or down, it's pretty much what everybody's already wearing.
So I'm hearing you say that it's okay if they modify the length of their fingertips by not being honest and raising it up to the, because that's the first thing my daughter said.
It doesn't say what you're doing with your shoulders, but it gives you latitude.
We need to be clear because it's our staff members that have to enforce this. It's the administration that has to enforce it. I know as an educator in the classroom, it's something that, you want, if we're making it crystal clear in policy, I'm just throwing it up there for discussion.
I would look to Dr. Burke for clarification on what's reasonable.
And certainly there's a piece to this that would accompany it when it comes to administrative guideline.
Yeah.
Carl, go ahead.
I think we ought to listen to our attorney.
Okay. Sam, did you have one?
No, I think that's all great discussion. It's certainly something that I would take into account when it comes back to policy in July, regardless of whether it's first read or second read. But I do think that, given where we're at, I don't know that it makes a huge difference. I think it'd be fine for it to go for second read.
Okay, was there any other concerns regarding the dress and grooming?
No, is this where I make a motion to have it go back for first read?
You can make a motion.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that it goes back for first.
Is it your motion? I mean, I just want to make sure I understand, because is it your motion to refer it back to committee, or is your motion to go back to first read? Because we've already read it. There's no further discussion on the reading.
I hear what you're saying. That's fine.
I think one of
I hear
the,
what you're saying.
I think
That's-
one of the best
that's good.
things that we can think about when we're trying to enact some kind of action is to be specific with that action. For instance, if in this case, if you wanted to refer it back to committee because there were some other things to address, saying, I'd like to refer this back to committee, I make a motion to refer this back to committee to address issues with finger length, issues with verbiage around lewd behavior, and issues with, then the committee knows their specific work, right? And you can see if the rest of the board has support for that motion or not.
Okay.
And then if that were the motion that was made and it were to pass and go back to committee, would it then move from committee to the board for a second read in that case? Because we've already done a first read.
It would, if, for instance, it was directed back and come back, then it doesn't go back to first committee, back to first read, back to first read, right?
Yeah, that's what I was. That's what I
And
was
honestly,
questioning.
that's what we did do previously, because people who were making motions weren't specific on the ask, and weren't detailed in sometimes multiple asks. They were just like, well, fix this one, and then they read it again and went, no, now I got another thing. No, now I got another thing. And it's not efficient, right?
Yeah.
Because that just takes a policy over 6 months' time, and then people just get frustrated. We're trying to be as specific as possible, try to cover as much ground as possible, get the work done, and be efficient and bring it back.
No, thank you for that. So yes, that would be my
So you would move to refer this back to the committee?
correct.
With
the specific Do I have to go through them?
Yes,
all
please.
again? Okay.
I would say,
So.
yes, so the committee
Yep,
knows what works,
That's fine.
right?
Yep, so number one, where was that? Invading the rights
Here
of
it is.
others.
So you're looking at right here.
Yeah, first paragraph, letter B. Specifically the words invading the rights of others.
And then you're looking
Letter
at C.
C. Talking about A shirts. Letter
Then you'd be
G.
looking at G and D.
G and H. G dealing with the words lewd, vulgar, and these were all sent. You know, so I don't need to repeat all those back again, right? Or I can send them to Lynn and you and.
What's that?
She would
say
Yes.
to address your concerns
Yes.
on letter G, with the verbiage,
Yeah.
in letter G,
Yes,
right? Because
And
you
I-
know what your concerns are.
yes. I mean, because I have all the suggested things that they're already there. Okay,
And clarification on letter H.
yes,
Yeah, okay.
And letter H you're putting in there as well.
yes.
Okay. Is there a second? It is moved by Diana and seconded by Charity to refer it back to the committee. Any further discussions?
One more question. If we don't vote to refer it back to committee, won't it just go back to the committee anyways?
Then,
without
then
those
the
notes?
direction to the committee would be to keep the language as is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because we've had that discussion at this board. There's no further discussion to be had around that particular language unless it comes back to the second read and there's still an objection.
Sure. Makes sense.
So, any further discussion on referring it back to committee? I'm not sure that the outcome is really going to change. So that I would be in less of support to move forward with this going to back to committee. I think that I'm happy with the changes in the language that's indicated. I think is pretty clear. I think our attorney even weighed in on several different instances of this particular policy. I'm happy with it moving forward. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Well, hold it. What's a yes vote and what's a no vote?
A yes vote would be to refer it back to committee. A no
Okay.
vote would be to not refer it back to committee.
Well, the
So it
yes
just comes up for second read at the committee.
The yes vote discusses the issues and concerns that I brought forward.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy,
No.
Dan Boltner,
No,
Craig Wortman.
No.
Charity Chandler,
Yes.
Tammy Fournier,
No.
Lori Hoffman,
No.
Diana Johnson,
Yes,
Sam O'Neill.
No.
And the motion fails for lack of a majority. So then we have the motion then for 5511 to be considered as part of the consent agenda. I guess it's still separate of the consent agenda, but it moves forward as a first read. Is there a motion?
First.
Second.
Moved by Sam, seconded by Tammy.
5511 is one we just discussed.
Any particular discussion around dress and grooming as the
And it's passing its first read with the amendment made,
Mhm.
by Ms. Chandler.
Yeah.
Just wanted everybody
Yes.
clarity on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Because that had support.
Mhm. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy.
Yes.
Dan Boltner,
yes,
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler,
Yes.
Tammy Fournier,
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
yes,
Lori Hoffman,
Yes.
Sam O'Neill.
Yes.
And the motion carries. That brings us to our action items. Resolution 9411, adoption of the Neola policy book. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Sam, seconded by Tammy.
time out. Did we ever do the resolution for the entire consent agenda? That was just.
Yes, we did
was
that
it? Okay,
first.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right.
My bad.
Any discussion? on the Neola book?
Thanks for working on this so hard, Jared. It's been a lot of stuff. So you've done great, honestly.
It's takes a village, as you can see. So I agree. Every teacher, administrator, whoever helped work on it, it's been a long process.
Any further comments? Roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy.
Yes.
Dan Boltner.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler.
Yes.
Tammy Fournier.
Yes.
Lori Hoffman.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam Awinio.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Resolution 9412, eCampus Charter School Contract. Do I hear a motion?
Can I?
First, make a motion.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Sam and seconded by
Me.
Diana to approve the eCampus Charter School Contract. Discussion.
Yeah, I don't know if I just make a motion for it right away, but I think that based on previous discussion we had during the strategic discussion session, it would be good to amend the contract from 5 years to 3 years, but maintain the yearly check-in, yearly evaluation, quarterly check-in, and the board liaison.
So those are already in the
Those are
contract,
already in
so I would accept
Just
the
first bit,
language
yeah.
as to amend the contract to a 3-year length of time.
Sure.
Is there a second to that
Second.
amendment? There's a second to that amendment. It's first moved by Sam, seconded by Carl. Discussion on the amendment.
Add an option to continue the contract at 3 years if we're satisfied with progress.
I
continue it
think
another
that's
2 years.
probably natural to the discussion. I mean, that if at the end of the 3-year period, the board, it doesn't prevent the board from stopping to move forward. It doesn't prevent the board from moving forward with eCampus at that point.
It's a renewal.
Yeah. Sam, go ahead.
And I think what the question comes down to is, would that save any time with the legal side of things in the contracting? And I don't think it would, right, Jared?
No, I mean, here's the thing. You have the ability to extend any contract at any given time, right? You don't need to state we're going to do that, right? You have that option anyway. You don't need to add that to your motion. You already retain that ability to extend a contract should they want to extend it, right? And so there's no legal confines to the length of that. You just when it comes up as a renewal portion, you just say, hey, we're happy with this. You instruct the administration to go forth and conquer with the same language, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
So the motion on the table is to amend the contract by to a 3-year period of time. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy.
Yes.
Dan Boltner.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler.
Yes.
Tammy Fournier.
Yes.
Lori Hoffman.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam Awinio.
Yes.
The motion carries. The resolution as amended 9412, the eCampus Charter School Contract for 3 years is on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy.
Yes.
Dan Boltner.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler.
Yes.
Tammy Fournier.
Yes.
Lori Hoffman.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam Awinio.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Resolution 9413, the summer school program. It looks like this is an action item for certified staff approval. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dan, seconded by Sam.
You gotta get.
Sorry. Roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy.
Yes.
Dan Boltner.
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler.
Yes.
Tammy Fournier,
Yes.
Lori Hoffman.
Yes.
Diana Johnson,
Yes.
Sam O'Neill.
Yes.
And the motion carries. That brings us to future agenda planning items. Do we have any future agenda items for further board discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the second opportunity for public input. And if there's same rules apply as before. Thank you.
Yes. 506 Wedgewood Drive. And I just want to start by congratulating our new board members and also Craig Wortman for his reelection. Craig stopped at our house. And
if we can, I
oh,
appreciate.
okay. Oh, don't do that.
Yes, let's try to keep it to
No names.
just directly to the board, please.
Oh, okay. I want to thank you for your hard work. And during my working years, now I'm retired, so I'm here. During my working years, I never went to a school board meeting. I'm one of those. And I see all the hard work you're putting into it, and I just want to thank you. And I think the way some of the people talked at the opening session was very disrespectful to you, and I don't think you deserve that. To call someone a hater and because they have a different point of view or different moral compass is wrong. I think it's a good thing to have a dress code. And the company I worked for, we had Casual Friday, and on Casual Friday, you could wear shorts to work, but they had to be, I can't remember the number of inches, 3 or 4 inches above the knee was the, where they had to come down in length. And if some of the ladies came to work in short shorts, they were sent home to change. And, I think that's a good thing. I think that these young people can learn that, there's a decorum and there are rules to follow. So I think the dress code is a good thing. And I really thank you. That must have really been a tough one to go through all those policies. And I just, like I say, I just thank you for what you're doing. And I have every respect for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Is there anybody online? Anybody else? All right. That concludes this section of public comment. We happen, do I hear a motion for a 5-minute recess before?
So moved.
Is moved by
Okay.
Sam, seconded by Diana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Before you go, I think we should make a motion to go into closed session after that recess. That's what's agended.
Okay.
Oh,
Otherwise, we gotta come back in.
Right,
oh, thank you.
I move to go into closed session after the agenda.
after the
recess.
recess.
Recess, sorry.
All right.
I'll second.
Is moved by Lori and seconded by Tammy to enter into closed session for the reasons stated in the
You have to read the
agenda.
reason.
Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Roll call vote, please.
Carl Schwarzy,
Yes.
Dan Volkner,
Yes.
Craig Wortman.
Yes.
Charity Chandler,
Yes.
Tammy Fournier,
Yes.
Lori Hoffman.
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam O'Neill.
Yes.
And the motion carries. So, any opposed to a recess? I didn't get to that. All right. Motion carried. Thank you. We need that anyway. Brings us to resolution 9414, the contract modifications for the secondary school administrator. Be it resolved that the Watertown Unified School District Board of Education approved the contract adjustments for secondary school administrators as discussed in closed session. Do I hear a motion?
I move.
Second.
Moved by Dan, seconded by Carl. Roll-
Okay, roll call vote.
Roll call vote, please.
Carl Forzy,
Yes.
Dan Boltner,
Yes.
Fred Wortman,
Yes.
Charity Chandler, Tammy Fournier, yes, Lori Hoffman,
Yes.
Diana Johnson.
Yes.
Sam O'Neill.
Yes.
Okay.
And the motion carries.
Just so you know, we'll put out a communication package on Wednesday, to let everybody know those changes.
Okay, excellent. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Sam, seconded by Tammy.
Don't you join us?
All those in favor?
I.
Any opposed?
No, we
Motion,
fail.
motion carried.
We-
We
Some documents.
We stand adjourned at 9:30.